put on a 50-pound Birkin rucksack and started hiking, swam a little bit. I was physically prepared, but I didn't think I was.
Yeah. It seems like there.
The fall of a patriarch. The courtroom was suffocating with silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from peace, but the kind that presses down on every chest, heavy, unbearable. A silence that comes before the storm, where everyone present knew something monumental was about to happen. Reporters leaned forward in their seats, pens trembling above notepads, cameras perched on shoulders, lenses ready to capture history. The air buzzed with whispers, the smell of too many bodies crammed together, the hum of electricity from lights overhead. Even the wooden benches seemed to groan under the weight of anticipation. And then it came, the sound that shattered that unbearable stillness. All rise. The bailiff's voice ricocheted through the chamber like a gunshot. In an instant, the scrape of chairs, the shuffle of feet, and the unified thud of dozens standing filled the room. A murmur rippled through the crowd as the double doors swung open. He walked in. Kody Brown. Not the Kody the world knew from television. Smiling, confident, hair flowing like some kind of golden mane while he declared himself the patriarch of a sprawling plural family. But this Kody was different. His face was tight, pale, his hair slicked back unnaturally as if he thought grooming could disguise desperation. He was flanked by two lawyers in dark suits, their expressions hard, professional shields. But no shield could protect him from what was coming. This was not the arena of reality television. This was not a set, not a confessional interview, not a season cliffhanger. This was a courtroom. And in this courtroom, Kody wasn't a star. He was a defendant. Fraud. Financial deceit. Concealment of marital assets. Over $1. 2 million allegedly siphoned, hidden, and betrayed. He had entered this place as the accused, but by the time it was over, he would leave as something far worse. A man exposed, stripped bare of every carefully constructed facade. As he sat down, teeth clenched, he risked a glance across the courtroom. There they were. Christine. Janelle. Meri. 3 women who had once shared his home, his dreams, his life. 3 women who had raised children under his roof, who had defended him when the world criticized, who had sacrificed pieces of themselves for the vision he had sold them. Now they sat as plaintiffs. Their faces were carved in stone. No warmth, no hesitation. Christine's chin was lifted, her expression resolute. Janelle's eyes burned with icy focus, a woman who had seen numbers that did not lie. And Meri, quiet, cold, lips pressed together, her silence more powerful than any scream could have been. And between them, on the polished wood of the table, lay a folder. A brown folder stamped with one word in thick red letters. Confidential. Inside the secrets. Inside, the evidence that could bring the entire Brown kingdom crashing down. Judge Harmon entered, a man of stern presence, his gavel in hand. His face was grave, as though he already sensed the magnitude of what this trial represented. Not just for the Brown family but for everyone watching beyond these walls. A nation that had tuned in for over a decade to watch what they thought was love, family, and faith. The judge's gavel slammed. This court is now in session. Case number 221. Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, and Meri Brown versus Kody Brown. The words rang out like thunder. Gasps erupted. Even though the media had whispered about lawsuits, few believed it would come to this. Not divorce, not custody, not property disputes. This was bigger. This was betrayal written into legal ink. The charges were read aloud. Financial deceit, fraudulent misrepresentation, concealment of marital assets exceeding $1. 2 million. Kody clenched his jaw tighter, his lips twitching with something between rage and fear. Judge Harmon gestured. Opening statements. Plaintiff, you may begin. Christine rose. Her legs trembled just for a second, just enough to remind everyone that this wasn't easy. This wasn't rehearsed drama. This was raw. But she steadied herself. Her voice, when it came, was sharp, carrying the weight of years of silence finally breaking. Your Honor, for years we lived as a family. We shared our lives, our dreams, our homes. We trusted one another. We trusted him. She pointed toward Kody, her finger unwavering. But while we built, he concealed. While we sacrificed, he took. Not just our time. Not just our trust. But our money. Millions funneled into accounts we never saw, signatures we never signed, properties we never agreed to give away. And we have proof. Her hand trembled only slightly as she gestured toward the folder. Bank transactions, overseas accounts, forged signatures, and one witness who risked everything to bring the truth forward. This case isn't about failed marriages. This case is about betrayal, deception, and theft. She stopped, breath heavy, tears threatening but not falling. Christine looked directly at Kody, the man she had once called husband. You destroyed this family not with divorce papers but with lies. And today the lies end. Gasps. Whispers. Camera flashes. Kody's lawyer, Mr. Powell, stood quickly, buttoning his jacket with exaggerated calm. His voice oozed confidence, though sweat had begun to bead at his temples. This, he began, is nothing more than a smear campaign orchestrated by 3 bitter ex-wives. My client has endured years of humiliation, abandonment, and attacks on his character. Now these women, fueled by resentment, bring unsubstantiated claims into this courtroom. There is no proof. No paper trail. Only hurt feelings and family drama repackaged for spectacle. He spread his arms dramatically, glancing at the press. This is not fraud. This is revenge. A murmur swelled in the courtroom, but Judge Harmon silenced it with a stern look. He turned back to Christine. Do you have this alleged evidence? Christine's hand hovered over the folder. For a moment, hesitation flickered in her eyes. Meri, beside her, reached out and grabbed her wrist. Are you sure? Meri whispered, her voice like ice cracking. Christine looked back at her, eyes fierce. Yes. It's time. She passed the folder to the court clerk. The clerk opened it, pulling out document after document. Copies of bank transfers into a mysterious trust account labeled B&R Trust. A signed check with Meri's forged signature. A property deed, mysteriously shifted into Robyn's name. And finally a flash drive. Silver, scratched, labeled in shaky handwriting. Daniel's backup. Do not erase. The room froze. Who is Daniel? Judge Harmon asked. Christine glanced at Janelle. Janelle stood, her voice cold, deliberate. Daniel is Kody's son. He found the discrepancies while helping Robyn with a tax return. He was prepared to testify today. But he's gone. The room erupted in gasps. Reporters nearly dropped their phones as they scrambled to tweet, text, broadcast. What do you mean gone? The judge pressed, his voice suddenly heavy with urgency. Christine swallowed hard. Her voice cracked. 2 nights ago Daniel disappeared. He left one voicemail. He said, if anything happens to me, check the flash drive. Then nothing. No calls. No sign of him. The courtroom shuddered with whispers. Kody leaned forward, rage spilling out in a low mutter. This is insane. You're destroying the family. But Meri leaned in, her voice cutting like a blade. No. You destroyed it the day you lied to us all and laundered our money through Robyn's business. Kody flinched as though the words themselves had drawn blood. The flash drive that shook the courtroom, the air in the courtroom was no longer heavy. It was suffocating. The moment that small black flash drive was handed to the judge, the gallery leaned forward as if pulled by a single invisible cord. Every breath, every shift of a chair, every flutter of paper echoed like thunder in the silence. This was no longer just a case of missing money. This was a betrayal stretching back years, buried under secrecy, arrogance, and manipulation. The judge's brow furrowed as he held up the drive. Counsel, what is this? The prosecutor's voice was measured, but every syllable carried weight. Your Honor, this flash drive was obtained from a secure family safe. It contains audio recordings, bank transfer receipts, and, most importantly, an internal communication between Mr. Brown and his financial consultant. We believe it proves intentional misrepresentation of family funds exceeding $1. 2 million. A gasp rippled across the room. Meri's hand instinctively flew to her mouth. Christine stiffened, her arms crossed so tightly against her chest it looked painful. Janelle leaned forward, her eyes laser-focused. Robyn shifted uncomfortably, her hands twisting together, lips pressed into a thin line. Kody? He smirked. A smug, careless smirk. Objection, his lawyer snapped, standing quickly. This is unverified. We don't know the chain of custody. It could be fabricated. But the prosecutor was ready. Your Honor, We have testimony and sworn statements from 2 of Mr. Brown's children confirming the origin of this drive. It was discovered in their father's personal study, hidden inside a hollowed-out family Bible. That detail hit the courtroom like a bomb. A family Bible, a symbol of faith and unity, turned into a vault of secrets. Christine let out a sharp breath. "Of course," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for those around her to hear. "Always hiding behind God." The judge raised a hand. "We will review the contents in chambers before it is formally admitted into evidence. But for now, this stays in the record." Kody shifted, his smirk faltering. For the first time that morning, his bravado wavered. The wives react when court recessed for lunch. The wives gathered in a cluster in the hallway. Cameras lined the corridor, fans and reporters shouting questions. Security tried to keep order, but the tension spilled over like boiling water. Janelle's voice was low, steady, but her anger crackled just beneath the surface. "He hid it in the Bible, Christine. The Bible. While telling us we were living God's truth, he was stashing away proof of his lies." Christine shook her head, tears brimming. "I'm not surprised. Not anymore. But the kids trusted him." Meri stood silently at first, her jaw clenched. She finally spoke, her tone icy. "He weaponized faith against us. Against me. For years he told me I wasn't faithful enough, wasn't loyal enough. All while hiding this." Robyn hovered slightly apart from them, her voice defensive, her eyes darting toward the cameras. "You don't know what's on that drive. None of us do yet. Maybe it's not what it looks like." But Janelle turned sharply, eyes blazing. Robyn stopped defending him. "You can't keep saying maybe when all the evidence screams otherwise. Open your eyes." For a split second, Robyn's mask cracked. Her lips trembled, her eyes glassy. But she quickly turned her face away, muttering, "You don't understand." The cameras caught it all. Inside the media storm, by the time court resumed, headlines were already flooding social media. Red Circle, secret audio drive found in Brown family Bible. Red Circle $1, 2 million betrayal? Court hears new evidence in sister wives case. Red Circle, which child leaked Kody's secrets? Fans dissected every second of the footage, zooming in on the wives' faces, debating Robyn's reaction, speculating which son had the courage to bring the evidence forward. Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered with signs. "Justice for the wives. Stop the lies, Kody. Where is the money?" The noise was deafening as the family filed back in. The consultant's crumbling defense. The afternoon session was brutal. The prosecution called Kody's so-called financial consultant to the stand, a thin, nervous man in a gray suit. "Mr. Reynolds," the prosecutor began, "can you confirm that you handled financial transfers for Mr. Kody Brown between 2019 and 2023? "Yes," he answered quietly, shifting in his seat. "Is it true that you advised Mr. Brown to establish 2 private LLCs, Brown Family Holdings and Life with Robyn Incorporated, without the knowledge of his other wives?" Reynolds swallowed hard. "Yes." A murmur rose from the gallery. The judge banged his gavel for silence. Why were these LLCs created? They were meant to protect assets. "Protect assets," the prosecutor repeated. "Or conceal them?" The man fidgeted. Mr. Brown insisted it was temporary. He said his other wives wouldn't understand. That single sentence landed like a dagger. Christine's face flushed red, Janelle's eyes closed in bitter recognition. Meri shook her head slowly, and Robyn froze. "Wouldn't understand?" Janelle whispered harshly under her breath. "We built that empire with him." The prosecutor leaned closer to the witness. "Mr. Reynolds, do you deny that over $1.2 million was funneled into these accounts without transparency to the family?" The consultant's hands trembled. He didn't answer immediately. Finally, he whispered, "No, I don't deny it." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, cries, even shouts from the back. The gavel slammed again and again. Kody's outburst. Kody snapped. "This is a witch hunt," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "That money was mine to use as I saw fit. I am the head of this family." The judge's voice thundered in response. "Mr. Brown, you will remain silent or be held in contempt of court." But it was too late. His mask had slipped. The arrogance, the entitlement, the raw fury, It was all laid bare for the court, for the cameras, for the world. Christine turned her face away, tears streaming silently. Janelle stared at him, her mouth a hard line, her fury controlled but unmistakable. Meri whispered almost to herself, "And that's the truth, isn't it? Always about power. Never about love." Robyn buried her face in her hands, whispering something no one could hear. The hook. As the day closed, the prosecutor stood tall. "Your Honor, tomorrow we will begin reviewing the audio recordings found on the flash drive. These are direct, unfiltered words from Mr. Brown himself. Once played, there will be no doubt as to intent, manipulation, and betrayal." The judge nodded, setting his gavel down with finality. Court adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow. The room erupted into chaos as the Browns filed out. But the truth? The most explosive revelations hadn't even been heard yet. Because on that flash drive, hidden for years, were recordings so devastating they would forever shatter the story Kody Brown had spent his life constructing. And tomorrow, those recordings would play. The secret recordings. And Daniel's return the next morning. The courtroom was standing room only. Reporters packed the benches, cameras hovered just outside the heavy wooden doors, and whispers filled the air like static. Everyone knew what was coming. The flash drive would be played. Kody Brown's own voice would testify against him. The wives sat in the front row, rigid, their faces pale but determined. Christine clutched a folded handkerchief in her lap. Janelle scribbled notes in the margin of her legal pad, her eyes sharp. Meri stared straight ahead, her body stiff as stone. Robyn twisted her wedding ring over and over on her finger, her lips moving silently as though in prayer. Kody swaggered into the courtroom late, his jaw set, his hair wild, his eyes blazing with the kind of defiance that screamed denial. He sat down heavily beside his attorney, refusing to look at his wives, refusing to look at the gallery, as if the very act of eye contact would confirm his guilt. The judge raised his gavel. Court is now in session. The prosecution may proceed with its evidence. The prosecutor stood, holding the small black flash drive between two fingers like it was a holy relic. "Your Honor, today the truth speaks in Mr. Brown's own words. These recordings, obtained from his private study, were never meant to see the light of day. But today they will." He nodded to the technician who slid the drive into the computer connected to the courtroom speakers. Recording 1. The voice of betrayal. A faint crackle filled the room. Then Kody's voice, unmistakable, sharp and full of arrogance. "They'll never understand. Christine's too emotional. Janelle only cares about balance sheets, and Meri's desperate enough to believe anything I tell her. I can move the money and spin it however I want. Robyn knows, it's about survival. About protecting the future. My future." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Christine's face drained of color, tears springing instantly to her eyes. Janelle's pen slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. Meri's lips pressed together, trembling with rage. "Robyn." She froze, eyes wide, as though hearing herself implicated in a conspiracy she could no longer deny. Kody shot to his feet. "That's taken out of context. That's not what I..." The judge slammed the gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Brown, or I'll have you removed." The audio played on. Recording 2. The missing millions. "I don't care what the wives think. The money in those accounts is safer with me and Robyn. If they saw the balance, they'd demand their share, but they don't deserve it. I built this. I held it all together. Without me, they'd all be nothing. So yes, I moved it. I'll keep moving it until I have control over every dollar. Let them scream. Let them cry. They'll thank me later." The words were venom. They hung in the air like smoke. Christine sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking. Janelle's hands gripped the edge of the bench, her knuckles white. Meri stared straight ahead, eyes glistening but unblinking. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was confession. Recording 3. The son he feared most. Then came the recording that shifted the entire case. "You think Gabriel scares me? You think Garrison can break me? No. The one I'm worried about is Daniel. He's too smart. Too quiet. He watches. He knows where the money goes. If he talks, it's over. He's the only one who could destroy me." The room went silent. Silent in a way that pressed against the chest, stealing breath. Daniel. The missing son. The one no one had seen for weeks. The judge's voice was stern. "Is this Daniel Brown accounted for? The prosecutor hesitated. Your Honor. At this time his whereabouts are unknown. He was expected to testify but disappeared 2 weeks ago. Whispers erupted. Cameras clicked furiously. The wives looked at each other in horror. Christine whispered, her voice trembling. He knew. Kody knew Daniel was the threat. He's gone because of this. Janelle's face crumpled, tears spilling freely now. Meri shook her head in disbelief, while Robyn's hands flew to her mouth as if to hide a secret she could not bear to speak. Kody exploded. This is ridiculous. Daniel's weak, he's confused, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He wouldn't dare testify against me. But his words only dug the hole deeper. Because everyone heard the panic. Everyone heard the fear. The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp. Mr. Brown, you will not speak again until addressed. Am I understood? Kody slammed back in his chair, muttering curses under his breath. The shock returned. The afternoon session began in chaos. Protesters outside were chanting Daniel's name. Social media buzzed with theories. Had Daniel been silenced? Was he hiding in fear? Or had Kody himself ensured his absence? Then, just as the prosecutor prepared to rest his case for the day, the heavy courtroom doors creaked open. Every head turned. A hush fell over the room so thick it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. There, framed in the doorway, stood Daniel Brown. His face was pale, his eyes hollow with exhaustion, but his spine was straight. He walked forward slowly, deliberately, each step echoing across the silent courtroom floor. Gasps erupted as people recognized him. Cameras flashed. Christine covered her mouth, sobbing openly. Janelle's hands flew to her chest, relief and terror colliding in her eyes. Meri whispered his name under her breath. Even Robyn's eyes filled with tears, though whether of guilt or relief no one could tell. But Kody went rigid. His face drained of color. His lips parted in shock, and for the first time his mask shattered completely. The judge raised his brow. Mr. Brown, are you prepared to testify? Daniel's voice was quiet but steady. Yes, Your Honor. I have been gone because I feared for my life. But today, I'm ready to tell the truth. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted. Wives cried. The gallery roared with disbelief. But above it all, Daniel stood tall, his eyes fixed not on the judge, not on the jury, not even on the prosecutor, but on his father. Kody Brown. The man who had feared him most. The courtroom was no longer just a room. It was an arena. Every seat was filled, the walls lined with press, the air pulsing with tension. Daniel Brown's unexpected return had transformed the trial from scandal to spectacle. For years, Kody Brown had presented himself as the patriarch, the leader, the architect of the Brown family legacy. But now his son, the son he had most feared, was about to testify against him. The judge adjusted his glasses. Mr. Daniel Brown, please approach the stand. The bailiff escorted Daniel forward. He looked thinner than when the public had last seen him, his jawline sharper, his eyes carrying the weight of sleepless nights. Yet his walk was steady, deliberate, his gaze unwavering. He raised his right hand, swore the oath, and sat down. The courtroom was silent, so silent that the shuffle of paper from the prosecutor's table sounded like thunder. The prosecutor's opening, Mr. Brown, the prosecutor began softly, can you explain to the court why you disappeared these last 2 weeks? Daniel took a slow breath, glancing once at his mother, Janelle. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, her silent support unshakable. I disappeared, Daniel said, his voice steady, because I was scared. Scared of what my father would do if I testified. Scared of what might happen if I revealed what I knew. He paused, his eyes sliding toward Kody. The older man shifted uncomfortably, his jaw clenching, a faint tremor in his hands betraying him. But I realized, Daniel continued, that if I stayed silent he would keep winning. He would keep hurting us. So I'm here. To tell the truth. The financial trail. The prosecutor leaned closer. Daniel, how did you discover evidence of the missing funds? Daniel nodded slowly. I grew up watching my mom handle budgets, receipts, bills. She taught me to track details, to question numbers that didn't add up. Over the years, I noticed large sums of money moving in and out of accounts I'd never heard of. At first, I thought maybe it was a business deal. But then I dug deeper. The gallery leaned forward as he spoke, captivated. I hacked into the shared family server. The one we used for schedules, photos, travel documents. Dad didn't know I had access. That's where I found the folder labeled Legacy Security. Inside were spreadsheets, transfers, and scanned receipts showing money being funneled into accounts under 2 LLCs, Brown Family Holdings and Life with Robyn Incorporated. Over $1. $2 million was hidden there. Christine gasped, clutching her chest. Janelle bowed her head, tears sliding down her cheeks, half grief, half vindication. Meri's fists clenched tightly in her lap. The prosecutor asked, "And what did you do with that information?" Daniel swallowed hard. "I saved it. Copied everything onto a flash drive. I knew it was dangerous, but I couldn't let him get away with it. I put it in a safe place. That's the drive you have now." The father-son clash. The prosecutor stepped back. No further questions. The judge turned. "Defense may cross-examine." Kody's lawyer rose, but before he could speak, Kody leaned forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "Daniel, look at me." Daniel turned his head slowly, locking eyes with his father. "You think you're some kind of hero?" Kody sneered. "You're a child. You don't understand how families work. Everything I did was for survival. For you, for your brothers and sisters. And you," his voice cracked with fury, "you betray me? You come here siding with outsiders against your own father?" Daniel didn't flinch. "No, Dad. I'm siding with the truth." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge banged his gavel. "Mr. Brown, you will not address the witness directly unless through counsel." But the damage was done. The image of father and son staring each other down in open court was already being burned into history. Daniel's bombshell. The defense attorney tried to recover. "Daniel, isn't it true you were angry at your father for personal reasons? That this testimony is less about finances and more about revenge?" Daniel sat up straighter. "No. This isn't about revenge. This is about protecting my family from a man who stopped being a father a long time ago." His words hit like a hammer. Christine openly wept. Janelle pressed her hands over her mouth to stifle a cry. Meri closed her eyes as if each word finally validated years of suffering. But Daniel wasn't finished. "You want to talk about personal reasons?" he said, his voice rising. "Here's one. My brother Garrison tried to talk to Dad before he died. Tried to warn him, tried to make him listen. And Dad ignored him. Because he was too busy protecting his money. That's not just bad fathering, it's negligence. It's cruelty." The courtroom froze. Even the judge looked shaken. Kody's face flushed crimson. "How dare you?" But Daniel's voice thundered over him. "How dare you? You think you're the victim here? You think moving money into secret accounts and calling it survival makes you noble? No, Dad. Makes you a coward. And today, everyone sees it." The breaking point. The defense attorney stammered. "Objection. Irrelevant, inflammatory, sustained," the judge said firmly, though his voice carried the weight of restrained emotion. "The witness will confine himself to facts relevant to the case." Daniel nodded. "Facts. Fine. Here's a fact. I have emails, voice recordings, and bank receipts that prove exactly what my father did. They're all backed up. Even if this drive disappears, I have copies stored safely. Nothing can erase the truth now." The gallery erupted in whispers. Reporters typed furiously. Cameras zoomed in on Kody's face, which had gone pale, sweat beading at his temples. For the first time it was clear. Kody Brown wasn't in control. The wife's silent verdict as Daniel stepped down from the stand, his eyes met his mother's. Janelle reached out as he passed, squeezing his hand, tears streaming down her face. Christine mouthed the words, "Thank you." Meri gave a single firm nod, her lips pressed into a line of steel. Even Robyn, who had spent years defending Kody, sat motionless, her eyes glassy, her shoulders slumped. Because Daniel's testimony hadn't just exposed Kody in court. It had exposed him to them, his wives, his children, his legacy. The hook. The judge adjourned for the day, his voice grave. "Tomorrow, this court will review the remaining recordings and documents provided by the witness. We are now dealing not just with financial misconduct but with potential fraud and coercion." The gavel struck. The room erupted into chaos. But the truth was undeniable. The patriarch had been stripped bare by his own son. The empire he built on secrecy and control was crumbling. And tomorrow the final pieces would fall. Because the worst of the recordings, The ones Kody thought he'd buried forever were still waiting to be heard. The courtroom had become a stage and every player was stepping into their role. But now the performance was raw, unscripted, filled with gasps, tears, and accusations that cracked like thunder. The judge gavelled the room to order once again. But order was a word that had lost its meaning here. On the witness stand sat Robyn Brown, her face pale, her hands trembling, a stack of tissues balled into her fist. She was supposed to be the one wife who had Kody's back. The loyal one. The chosen one. But as her voice quivered, the illusion began to collapse. I didn't know about the money, she whispered, glancing nervously toward Kody. You didn't know? The prosecutor snapped. Mrs. Brown, your name appears on 3 of the Shell accounts. Are you telling this court your husband forged your signature? The room froze. Christine covered her mouth with both hands. Janelle's jaw clenched, a silent rage flickering behind her eyes. And Meri leaned forward, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Tell the truth, Robyn. The words rang out like a gavel strike, silencing even the court stenographer. Robyn looked down, tears dripping onto the wood of the stand. I thought it was for us. For the family. Kody said it was to protect us. Protect who? Janelle fired back from the gallery. Your children. Your house. While mine were told there wasn't money for rent. For food. For school. Robyn collapsed further into herself. Kody sat beside his lawyer, stone-faced, but his hand twitched on the table, his fury bubbling just beneath the surface. The judge's patience thinned. Mrs. Brown, this is your sworn testimony. Did you knowingly participate in the concealment of $1, $2 million in marital funds? The air was suffocating. Cameras zoomed in. The gallery leaned forward as if the very air in the courtroom might crack under the weight of her answer. Finally, Robyn whispered, yes. The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, reporters leaping from their chairs. Even the judge's gavel thunder couldn't restore silence quickly enough. Christine's body shook, tears of fury streaking her cheeks. All those years, she said, not caring that every microphone in the room caught it. All those years we lived on scraps while you sat in your castle. And you knew. Janelle leaned back, her hands folded, but her voice carried like a dagger. And you still let Kody call us ungrateful. You still let him call my kids selfish. When you were in on it the whole time. Robyn turned toward Kody, her lips trembling. You told me it was for us. You told me, but Kody cut her off, his voice booming. Don't you dare put this on me. For the first time the mask cracked. His voice was raw, panicked, no longer controlled. You wanted that house. You wanted security. You begged me to make sure your kids never lived like mine did. You think this was all me? The courtroom roared with noise. And in the back row, Daniel Brown, Kody's son, stood, his fists clenched, his voice finally breaking through the chaos. Stop lying, Dad. The room fell eerily silent. Cameras spun. All eyes locked on the young man who had carried the missing flash drive, who had nearly disappeared forever in the shadow of this scandal. Stop lying, Daniel said again, stepping forward. I've heard the tapes. I've heard you both. And the world deserves to hear them too. He pulled a small recorder from his jacket pocket. The same one that had nearly cost him his freedom. The same one Kody had tried to erase. And as the red light blinked, the sound of Kody and Robyn's voices filled the courtroom like ghosts haunting their own graves. You moved the money here, Kody's voice said on the recording. No one checks. Not even Janelle. Not even the lawyers. Then Robyn's voice, softer but unmistakable. What about the others? What if they ask? They won't, Kody answered coldly. They're too loyal. Too blind. They'll never question me. The audio stopped. Silence. Deafening silence. Janelle closed her eyes, tears sliding down her face. Christine buried her face in her hands, shaking. Meri sat utterly still, her face pale, her mouth pressed in a thin, broken line. And the gallery, once buzzing, once alive, sat motionless as though every breath had been stolen from their lungs. The truth was no longer whispered, no longer suspected. It was spoken, undeniable in Kody and Robyn's own voices. The empire had not just cracked. It had crumbled. And the court, like the world outside, would never see Kody Brown the same again. The courthouse stood like a fortress against the September sky, its columns stark and unyielding, as if they knew the weight of what was about to happen inside. Reporters clustered on the steps, microphones raised, their voices overlapping like a swarm. Today could decide the fate of Kody Brown. Secret audio evidence expected. Where is the missing $1? 2 million? Inside, the air was electric, thick with anticipation. Every seat in the gallery was filled. Former fans, betrayed investors, curious strangers, and the ever-hungry cameras of the media. At the front, the wives sat together, but not as a family. They were survivors now, fractured but united by one truth. Kody's empire had been built on lies. Christine leaned forward, fingers clasped tight around a rosary she hadn't touched in years. Janelle sat rigid, her notebooks and receipts stacked neatly beside her, every page a weapon waiting to be unsheathed. Meri's face was unreadable, but her eyes burned with the weight of unspoken betrayal. Robyn sat apart, trembling, clutching tissues, her mascara already smudged, still loyal to Kody, but cracks ran through that loyalty like glass ready to shatter. And then he entered. Kody Brown. The man who once strode across television screens, arms open, hair gleaming in the Arizona sun, speaking of eternal families and divine callings. Now he walked with a stiffness that betrayed his fear. His jaw clenched, his eyes darting, searching for loyalty in the faces that once adored him. There was none. The gavel struck. All rise. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Harmon presiding. The judge's gaze swept across the room, pausing on Kody with the kind of silence that could crush bones. You may be seated. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman with a voice like steel, wasted no time. Your Honor, today we present evidence that Mr. Brown, under the guise of family leadership, concealed and misappropriated over $1, 2 million. We will show the court's secret audio recordings, bank records, and first-hand testimony from his wives and children, proof that this was not oversight. It was betrayal. It was fraud. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Christine's grip on her rosary tightened until her knuckles whitened. Janelle adjusted her glasses, ready. The defense attorney rose, smoothing his suit with deliberate calm. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to hear are not facts but feelings. Families argue. Families miscommunicate. My client may have made mistakes, but mistakes are not crimes. The prosecution seeks to paint him as a villain. We will show that Kody Brown acted to protect his family, even when they turned against him. A murmur swept through the room. Protect? Christine almost laughed, but it came out as a choked sound. Janelle's pen stabbed into the paper as though her fury demanded ink. The judge nodded. We will hear testimony. Call your first witness. And with that, the walls of silence that had protected Kody for years began to crack. Christine was called first. She rose slowly, every step toward the witness stand echoing across the marble floor. She placed her hand on the Bible, her voice steady but trembling at its edges. I do. The prosecutor approached. Mrs. Brown, can you tell the court what you discovered about your husband's handling of family money? Christine inhaled sharply. The world leaned in. Her voice carried the weight of decades. Love given, loyalty traded, pain swallowed. I trusted him when he promised we would grow old together. I trusted him when he said every dollar we earned would be for the good of the family. I built my life around that promise. But one day I opened an account and found it empty. Rent was unpaid. Bills stacked up. And then I learned he had moved money into accounts I never even knew existed. Her voice broke. Tears slid freely now, not of weakness but of release. He let us starve while he protected her. Christine's eyes flicked to Robyn. We scraped by while he made sure one house, one woman never went without. The courtroom buzzed like a hive struck with a stick. Kody's jaw clenched, his lawyer whispering frantically, but the damage was done. The truth had found its first crack in the open air. And this was only the beginning. The gavel struck again, but it was useless. The courtroom buzzed, a hive of whispers and gasps, every spectator electrified by Christine's words. On the stand she trembled, yet her voice had never been stronger. The judge leaned forward, brows drawn, aware that what had just been spoken was not mere bitterness. It was the first stone cast against an empire built on deception. Thank you, Mrs. Brown, the prosecutor said softly. No further questions. Christine stepped down, her eyes refusing to meet Kody's. He shifted in his seat, shoulders tight, jaw locked, his glare slicing across the room as though he could silence her with the weight of his stare. But she did not look back. She walked toward Janelle and squeezed her hand. Now it was Janelle's turn. She rose with quiet resolve, clutching a stack of binders so thick they threatened to spill from her arms. Each was labeled neatly. Expenses 2019. Mortgage records 2020. Family account transfers. Years of meticulous bookkeeping, her defense against gaslighting finally given a stage. After the oath, she adjusted her glasses and sat. The courtroom waited. Mrs. Brown, the prosecutor began, you were often described as the financial manager of the family, correct? Janelle nodded. That's right. I handled budgets, tracked bills, kept receipts. And in your role, did you notice discrepancies in how money was handled? Janelle opened the first binder. The snap of the rings echoed like gunfire. Yes. The first small things. Missing deposits. Rent checks bouncing when Kody swore we had money. But by 2021 the amounts were massive. I tracked over $1. $2 million transferred out of family accounts into accounts I had no access to. Gasps tore through the gallery. Cameras zoomed in. The number hung in the air like smoke no one could breathe through. $1. $2 million? The prosecutor repeated. Yes, Janelle said firmly, her voice sharp as steel. Money meant for our mortgages, for our children's tuition, for utilities and groceries. Gone. Vanished. While Kody told us we needed to tighten our belts. While Christine rationed food for her kids. While Meri lived off scraps of a rental business. While I told my children no again and again. And yet, she slapped down a receipt. Robyn had a new house. Fully furnished. Paid for in cash. The room erupted. Robyn buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Christine gripped the table as if steadying herself against the weight of rage. Meri's lips parted slightly but no sound came. Order, the judge roared. But Janelle wasn't finished. She opened the second binder, pulling out a flash drive in a clear evidence bag. She held it up and for the first time Kody's mask cracked. His face drained of color. This, Janelle said, her voice steady, was given to me by my son, Daniel. He found it in a folder Kody kept hidden. It contains audio recordings, conversations Kody never wanted us to hear. Proof that this wasn't an accident. Proof that he moved money deliberately. The courtroom gasped again. All eyes swiveled to Kody, who leaned forward, eyes blazing. That's stolen property, he barked, his voice carrying over the crowd. The judge's gavel slammed. Mr. Brown, you will remain silent. But Kody wasn't finished. He stood, pointing at Janelle with a trembling hand. You think you can take me down with half-truths? With kids who don't know what they're talking about? This family would be nothing without me. Nothing. His voice cracked. His chest heaved. The man who once proclaimed unity and love now stood revealed. Desperate, furious, cornered. The prosecutor's voice cut clean through his outburst. Mr. Brown, you just confirmed the recordings exist. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Christine's tears shimmered in the light. Meri finally closed her eyes, the truth she'd known in her bones now undeniable. Robyn's sobs filled the room, but no one moved to comfort her. The judge leaned forward. We will admit the flash drive into evidence. Court will recess until its contents are reviewed. The gavel struck once more. But the damage was done. The wives had spoken. The number was out. The flash drive was real. And for the first time in his life, Kody Brown looked afraid. The fall of a patriarch, the courtroom was suffocating with silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from peace, but the kind that presses down on every chest, heavy, unbearable. A silence that comes before the storm, where everyone present knew something monumental was about to happen. Reporters leaned forward in their seats, pens trembling above notepads, cameras perched on shoulders, lenses ready to capture history. The air buzzed with whispers, the smell of too many bodies crammed together, the hum of electricity from lights overhead. Even the wooden benches seemed to groan under the weight of anticipation. And then it came, the sound that shattered that unbearable stillness. All rise. The bailiff's voice ricocheted through the chamber like a gunshot. In an instant, the scrape of chairs, the shuffle of feet, and the unified thud of dozens standing filled the room. A murmur rippled through the crowd as the double doors swung open. He walked in. Kody Brown. Not the Kody the world knew from television. Smiling, confident, hair flowing like some kind of golden mane while he declared himself the patriarch of a sprawling plural family. But this Kody was different. His face was tight, pale, his hair slicked back unnaturally as if he thought grooming could disguise desperation. He was flanked by 2 lawyers in dark suits, their expressions hard, professional shields. But no shield could protect him from what was coming. This was not the arena of reality television. This was not a set, not a confessional interview, not a season cliffhanger. This was a courtroom. And in this courtroom, Kody wasn't a star. He was a defendant. Fraud. Financial deceit. Concealment of marital assets. Over $1. 2 million allegedly siphoned, hidden, and betrayed. He had entered this place as the accused, but by the time it was over, he would leave as something far worse. A man exposed, stripped bare of every carefully constructed facade. As he sat down, teeth clenched, he risked a glance across the courtroom. There they were. Christine. Janelle. Meri. 3 women who had once shared his home, his dreams, his life. 3 women who had raised children under his roof, who had defended him when the world criticized, who had sacrificed pieces of themselves for the vision he had sold them. Now they sat as plaintiffs. Their faces were carved in stone. No warmth, no hesitation. Christine's chin was lifted, her expression resolute. Janelle's eyes burned with icy focus, a woman who had seen numbers that did not lie. And Meri, quiet, cold, lips pressed together, her silence more powerful than any scream could have been. And between them, on the polished wood of the table, lay a folder. A brown folder stamped with one word in thick red letters. Confidential. Inside the secrets. Inside, the evidence that could bring the entire Brown kingdom crashing down. Judge Harmon entered, a man of stern presence, his gavel in hand. His face was grave, as though he already sensed the magnitude of what this trial represented. Not just for the Brown family but for everyone watching beyond these walls. A nation that had tuned in for over a decade to watch what they thought was love, family, and faith. The judge's gavel slammed. This court is now in session. Case number 221. Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, and Meri Brown versus Kody Brown. The words rang out like thunder. Gasps erupted. Even though the media had whispered about lawsuits, few believed it would come to this. Not divorce, not custody, not property disputes. This was bigger. This was betrayal written into legal ink. The charges were read aloud. Financial deceit, fraudulent misrepresentation, concealment of marital assets exceeding $1. 2 million. Kody clenched his jaw tighter, his lips twitching with something between rage and fear. Judge Harmon gestured. Opening statements. Plaintiff, you may begin. Christine rose. Her legs trembled just for a second, just enough to remind everyone that this wasn't easy. This wasn't rehearsed drama. This was raw. But she steadied herself. Her voice, when it came, was sharp, carrying the weight of years of silence finally breaking. Your Honor, for years we lived as a family. We shared our lives, our dreams, our homes. We trusted one another. We trusted him. She pointed toward Kody, her finger unwavering. But while we built, he concealed. While we sacrificed, he took. Not just our time. Not just our trust. But our money. Millions funneled into accounts we never saw, signatures we never signed, properties we never agreed to give away. And we have proof. Her hand trembled only slightly as she gestured toward the folder. Bank transactions. Overseas accounts. Forged signatures. And one witness who risked everything to bring the truth forward. This case isn't about failed marriages. This case is about betrayal, deception, and theft. She stopped, breath heavy, tears threatening but not falling. Christine looked directly at Kody, the man she had once called husband. You destroyed this family not with divorce papers but with lies. And today the lies end. Gasps. Whispers. Camera flashes. Kody's lawyer, Mr. Powell, stood quickly, buttoning his jacket with exaggerated calm. His voice oozed confidence, though sweat had begun to bead at his temples. This, he began, is nothing more than a smear campaign orchestrated by 3 bitter ex-wives. My client has endured years of humiliation, abandonment, and attacks on his character. Now these women, fueled by resentment, bring unsubstantiated claims into this courtroom. There is no proof. No paper trail. Only hurt feelings and family drama repackaged for spectacle. He spread his arms dramatically, glancing at the press. This is not fraud. This is revenge. A murmur swelled in the courtroom, but Judge Harmon silenced it with a stern look. He turned back to Christine. Do you have this alleged evidence? Christine's hand hovered over the folder. For a moment, hesitation flickered in her eyes. Meri, beside her, reached out and grabbed her wrist. Are you sure? Meri whispered, her voice like ice cracking. Christine looked back at her, eyes fierce. Yes. It's time. She passed the folder to the court clerk. The clerk opened it, pulling out document after document. Copies of bank transfers into a mysterious trust account labeled B&R Trust. A signed check with Meri's forged signature. A property deed, mysteriously shifted into Robyn's name. And finally a flash drive. Silver, scratched, labeled in shaky handwriting. Daniel's backup. Do not erase. The room froze. Who is Daniel? Judge Harmon asked. Christine glanced at Janelle. Janelle stood, her voice cold, deliberate. Daniel is Kody's son. He found the discrepancies while helping Robyn with a tax